This is Vic's Financial Strategy, and in today's lecture, we're going to be looking at the VP indicator, which stands for the volume profile here on Webull. We're going to get an understanding of what it is, how to use it, and how to build a trading strategy around it, and see how it affects key levels in the market. Now, once you find the VP indicator here in the Indicators tab, you'll see the VP right here. When you switch it on and off, we see that a volume bar pops up here on the y-axis. And traditionally, traders are used to seeing volume down here along the x-axis, but for the VP, we're looking at volume on the y-axis in specific price ranges. Now, just to recap on normal volume, every time I hover over a candle, we're on the weekly candles. So this week just started, we had about 79 million shares traded. Of course, you can always see it up here. That's getting us an understanding of how many shares are traded per day or per week, or essentially per candle. But on the VP bars, the volume profile, we see that volume is at 4.3 billion shares at this specific price. We're not looking at time, we're looking at price. So the most amount of volume is taking place at 146.5. We'll just say it's 146.5. We see that the second runner-up is going to be about 4 billion shares traded here, and so on. Now, when I zoom out, we see that the volume changes. Now, the VP is always getting calculated. The volume profile is always getting calculated based off of the data that is presented. So all the data on the chart you see right now will give us an indication of where the volume profile is. So the data is starting here, going to here. Now, if we zoom up, we see that the volume profile bars change up a little bit. But when you're building a trading strategy, you want to make sure that you're using different time frames to find your VP levels. Now, for now, we are on the weekly candles. We see that pretty straightforward. Volume really picks up above $100 a share and kind of tapers off above 160. These gray bars down here are kind of lower volume areas, but of course, when we zoom in, we see a different story told. So right away, if I just zoom out to this amount of data right here, I see that we have a couple ranges, but our mid price is generally near the 150s mark. Now, when you're trading stocks, obviously we're going to be looking at closer time frames, and I really like to start with the daily candles. And once we flip over to the daily candles, we see that volume is still very high at this 145 mark. So let's just put in a key level there just to get an understanding of this place right here. Kind of a line in the sand. We'll make it yellow to be more recognizable. Now, obviously this is a big key level. We see that it is respected and tried and true a couple times. Boom, boom, boom. Once more here, a couple times here. But I also see some other ones as well. Let's take a look at this volume profile level that was put in. So right away, the VP, I'm going to turn it off for a second. The VP indicator put in these two levels, put in about 3 actually. We see 1, 2, and then 3 up here. But we're going to be focusing on these bottom 2 real quick and get an understanding of key supply and demand zones, because essentially that is what the VP indicator is measuring. Now let's zoom in on these candles right here. Let's flip over to the 4-hour candles. We see that this range on these 2 VP key levels, these are not key levels that I would put in based off of typical support and resistances. This is all VP. We look at tops and bottoms being respected, and we see that we find good long and short opportunities when looking at these levels. So starting back here, we had a test of this level, we had a bounce, we had a break, perfect opportunity to go short here. We had a good opportunity to go long here, take profit there. Same story, short here, or go long here to go short here. And then once we get above these levels, you get some retests. And generally, these have been pretty tried and true support and resistance zones. But more recently, we see that we just had a break in the level and it got retested on Friday. Today's Monday. So as we traded today, we are still below that level. And we see that we are in a bear market. And obviously we can look at this chart and deduce that we are selling downwards, but VP will give you an understanding of a couple key levels and supply and demand zones. If it weren't for VP, I would be putting in levels elsewhere, similar to this. Perhaps one right here and here. Maybe we can plot a couple on the downside as well. One right there, one right there. Now that we got some levels in place, let's quickly turn off the VP profile or the volume profile indicator. we really begin to get an understanding of where the average price was and where the volume was trading at. Essentially, it's a lot clearer to go short here as we break down below these zones, and a lot easier to go long above this zone right here. Pretty simple. Now that we understand this a little bit, let's take a look at SPY and see where maybe we might find some support in this bear market. So right now, when I zoom out, we see that price has been trading downwards in this rough year. Tons of different rejections here. We just got a trendline break and we've been selling down pretty rapidly. But let's say we're a long trader and we want to go long at some point and maybe try to catch a falling knife. Where do we try to do that? Well, let's take a look at the VP indicator and get an understanding of where the next volume zone is. Right now, so far, it has been generally high amounts of volume between 360 to about 400. We saw that the most average amount of volume, or the highest elevated amount of volume, was here around 390s when looking at all the data presented. But if we zoom in a little bit closer, we see that below 390 exactly, volume tapers off big time. Volume is tapering off significantly, and we gap down. We shoot down some more. We find a little bit more volume here, but we cannot catch a bounce. I would not try to catch a falling knife right now. If anything, I'd be looking to go short. If I were trying to take a long position, I would perhaps be looking at where volume picks up again. And to do that, I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit. I see that kind of our last line of support on the S&P 500 or the SPY is probably gonna be around 358, 360. After there, I think hell can break loose and that we trade down as we taper off in volume. There's just not a lot of support left here. We would kind of be in price discovery on the downside. So I just flipped back over to Apple and we're looking at the 5-minute candles. Let's use the VP indicator to trade intraday and get in and out within the minutes. Let's say we're looking for a quick buck and we're using the VP indicator only for a day trade. So how do we use it? Let's just use the levels that we have presented in front of us right now. We have our midpoint here at the 132.3. We have a point here at 132.6, and we have our low of day, close to our low of day here at the 131.5. So let's put in those 3 lines. Boom, boom, and boom. Great. We'll turn it off for a second. If we were just using these VP lines that were provided in front of us, we see that these key levels are used for a day trade. Now, after this data has been implemented, let's say that we're looking to go short at some point. We break down on this first level, this first yellow line right here, and we're looking to go short. We see it's below VWAP, but we must wait for the retest. Once we get that retest and a confluence of VWAP at the same time, we see that we get immediate rejection and we enter on this next candle. That is one way you can use the VP indicator and VWAP at the same time to get a very tried and true entry and look to exit towards low of day. Low of day, of course, is at that other VP line. We'll make it red and we take profit here as well. So that's the VP indicator. What I like most about this indicator is that if you have trouble finding key levels, this will help you out significantly. And I like to use it when building out a day trading strategy, using it in confluence with say VWAP, like that last example right here. In future videos, we'll be looking over other indicators to use when trading. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to turn on that notification bell so you can see these videos as soon as possible. Once again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next lecture.